Hi guys, my name is Emily and today I'm going to be going over my July reading wrap up, which includes 10 books that I read this month. I'm really proud of myself for actually reading 10 books. I haven't been reading as much this year as I have in past years, but in this summer I've actually been having a lot more free time to read, so I'm really enjoying that and I'm definitely getting back into my reading groove, which I'm so happy about. I did end up reading 9 full-length books this month and 1 short story, and I'm just kind of including that in with my 10 books just because it is something that I've read, so that's what I decided to do. So to start things off, the first book that I read this month is People Kill People by Ellen Hopkins, and this is the last book of hers that I had to read, so I'm officially done all of her books, which I'm really excited about. She is definitely one of my favorite authors, and this book is kind of a bit different for the other books that she's written. This book follows a group of people who are dealing with some racism and sexism and a lot of other bad things that are going on in the world today. You know before the book starts that one person in the book will die because they get shot and another character is the one doing the shooting. So you it's not really a guessing game, but you do have this in the back of your mind as you're reading throughout the book and you're kind of guessing like, oh, I wonder who it's going to be that's going to die, kind of thing. I did enjoy the plot of this book, so I gave it a 3 out of 5, but I still found it confusing to figure out which character was which since there are so many point of views, and it wasn't really my type of book that I would traditionally grab, but I am so glad I read it. The next book I read this month is Neverworld Wake by Marissa Pessel. I don't really know how to pronounce her name, I'm sorry if I butchered it, and this book I don't have a physical copy of. I read it as an ebook. And it is definitely something that I have had on my reading list for a while, and I finally got around to reading it. It basically follows a young woman named Beatrice and her group of friends that she's kind of rekindling with after separating from them a while after her boyfriend's death. And this group of friends find themselves in a time loop called the Neverworld Wake, where they're basically repeating the same sequence of time over and over again. And during this time, she really wants to figure out what happened to her boyfriend and why they are stuck in this time loop. In terms of genre, I'd say this book is kind of like a thriller, and I really did not expect the ending. I didn't expect what happened to the boyfriend. I didn't expect the explanation of what happened with this group of friends. So I like that element of it, that it wasn't really predictable in my opinion, and it did keep me guessing right until the end. I ended up giving this book a 3.5 stars out of 5 just because it didn't blow me away or anything, but I definitely enjoyed it, and I would definitely recommend it to anyone who really enjoys books like that and the kind of the guessing game of what happened and unraveling secrets and that kind of thing. The next 3 books that I'm going to be talking about are all by Ellen Hilderbrand, who I am definitely a new fan of. I am really enjoying her books, especially reading them in the summer. It's just the perfect vibe, and I am definitely going to recommend these books to anyone who is looking for some summer reads. So the first one that I read by her this month was The Love Season, and this follows 2 women who are dealing with grief in different ways. One of them is a woman who is dealing with the loss of her best friend, and the other woman is the daughter of this woman who has died. And these 2 women come together and they're trying to deal with the loss of their best friend slash mother, as well as learning about themselves. This book isn't something that I would say is anything too complex or super deep, but I really did enjoy it. It would be a perfect beach read or something cozy in the summer to read, or really any time of the year. If you're not too big on saving books for the seasonal times, like a beach read in the summertime, then read this anytime, honestly. I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. And I would definitely recommend it to anyone looking for a book like that. The next book I read this month that was also by Ellen Hilderbrand is The Blue Bistro. So this book is about this woman named Adrienne who finds herself working at the Blue Bistro, which is a popular restaurant on Nantucket Island, which all of her books take place on. And she is falling for her boss, Thatcher, and she's trying to deal with her feelings for him, as well as her feelings of confliction for the chef, as well as getting used to working at the restaurant and discovering herself in the process. And this book was really hyped up for me in terms of Ellen Hilderbrand books. I heard this is one of the ones that most people really enjoy with her, and I have to say it kind of disappointed me a little bit. I didn't really find the elements of the restaurant too interesting. I found there were a lot of characters compared to like the books that I was talking about earlier. There were so many characters, just all the different people who worked at the restaurant. It was way too complicated for me to like remember. And maybe I just have a bad memory with characters, that's possible too. But this one I just couldn't wrap my head around. I didn't enjoy it too much. I found the ending was a little bit kind of anticlimactic. I didn't really enjoy it overall. So I gave it a 2 out of 5 stars, but I would still give this a chance if you are a fan of Ella Hildebrand, just because this is only my opinion and I have heard really good things about it. So I would still give this one a chance if you're looking for a beach read. The last book by Ellen Hildebrand that I read in the month of July is A Summer Affair, which is actually one of my favorite covers that I've seen by her so far. It's so pretty and beachy, I love it so much. And this book, as the title kind of spoils, is about a girl who ends up in an affair. And it basically follows a woman named Claire who has a bunch of kids and she's happy with her husband, but she still ends up finding herself having an affair with a man who's kind of in charge of an auction that she's working for. And she's struggling with this affair as well as her job in the auction. And she's trying to figure out her priorities and what she's gonna do. And I did find this book had a decent amount of drama, which is a good criteria for me. I love the drama in books. It's one of my favorite parts about reading. And so I gave this book a 3 out of 5 stars. It was pretty enjoyable in terms of the plot. I did like the aspect of figuring out, oh, what's gonna happen with her affair? Is she gonna end up with her husband? Is she gonna end up with the man that she's cheating on her husband with? Or possibly her ex-boyfriend who might be reintroduced to the mix. And so this book, I did find there were some elements as well that were kind of unnecessary. There were some characters whose plot lines I didn't really feel like added too much to the story. I would definitely recommend this book as well for anyone who's looking for a summer read and who likes a little bit of drama thrown in there, because this definitely has that, and I don't think you'll regret reading it. The next 2 books that I read this month are part of the It Girl series by Cecily von Segazer. I think that's how you say her name. This series I am actually really liking. I read the 2nd and 3rd books in the series in July. This is the 2nd book in the series called Notorious. And after reading the 1st book, I was pretty sure that I was going to continue to read the 2nd one just to see how it went. And this book sold me on continuing the series until I finished it. I am really invested in the book series after just reading the 2nd book, and I would definitely recommend this for any fans of Gossip Girl, Pretty Little Liars, anything like that. But this book follows Jenny, of course, who is the main character in the It Girl series, and she's kind of trying to get used to her 2 roommates, Brett and Callie. And while she's trying to figure out her relationships with these new girls, Tinsley, who is her 2 roommates' original roommate, ends up coming back. And Tinsley was the it girl of this boarding school. She's basically the Serena van der Woodsen, the Blair Waldorf together. She is both of those people all in one, and she's returning to the school. And it's basically the aftermath of what happens once Tinsley comes back. And I am a fan of the series. I am really enjoying it. I can't wait to read more. This is a really good thing to read right now if you're really into the new Gossip Girl series. For example, the reboot. I am really enjoying it. Let me know if you guys are too, because I'm a fan. I ended up giving this book a 4.5 out of 5 stars, which is the highest rating of any book that I've read this month, just because there wasn't anything I didn't like about it. I love the drama. I love the characters. This series I find is one of the easiest to keep track of for me, of which characters are which, not confusing the characters for each other. This one I'm good with. I know the characters and I'm really enjoying the series. And the only reason I didn't give it a 5 out of 5 is because it didn't wow me. I didn't cry or anything. I wasn't like, oh my gosh, this is so good. Like, everyone needs to read this book. Of course, I really enjoyed it, but it wasn't like, oh my gosh, this is my top 10 favorite books kind of thing. But after I read this, I went right into book number 3, Reckless, and this one was a 4 out of 5 stars for me. I'm not going to spoil really what happens in the series just because this is a series, so if you didn't read the books that came before, then you shouldn't really read the books that come after. But this book is about the consequences of all of the characters bickering with each other. Jenny, Callie, Brett, and Tinsley are all having conflicts with their relationships, and it's kind of the story about what's happening with them right after the 2nd book. And we do get more of an insight on Tinsley's character. We get to know her a little bit better, more than just she's the it girl, but what's kind of a little bit more behind her character. Why is she the way she is? We learn a little bit more about that. So definitely pick this series up if you're looking for a new one to start, if you haven't read it already and you really like the drama, the gossip, and all that kind of stuff. The next book I read in July is The Night Film, which is also by Marissa Pessl, and I didn't actually realize that it was the same author as Neverworld Wake when I picked this book up. But it just kind of worked out that way. I really didn't realize the connection between the 2 books. And this was also on my to-be read list for a really long time, so I also just decided to read this one. It follows the story of a girl named Ashley, who is the daughter of a horror film creator, and she ends up being dead. And there is kind of a investigator guy who is looking into the mystery of Ashley and her father and trying to uncover what happened to her, and if her father, who is now basically MIA, no one really knows where he is, had something to do with her death. This book was really interesting to me in the beginning. I was really captivated by the plot and the mystery about this horror film director, creator, and what was going on with him, and like all the darkness in his family and what happened with his daughter. It was really interesting concept and nothing I had really read about before. So I was really looking forward to this, but unfortunately about halfway through I started to lose interest in it. It just wasn't really what I expected in terms of the plot, I guess. It just started to feel a little bit cheesy, like everything was falling into place a little bit too easy for the characters, and the ending was a little bit unsatisfying to me. It left way too many unanswered questions for my liking in a book, which some people really like that. And if you're like that, where you like to kind of figure things out for yourself in the end, I would pick this book up. Even if you're just a fan of thrillers, I would still recommend this because there's a good chance you will like it, because so many people like this, and I'm so sad that I didn't love it as much as many people did. But there's books for everyone, and everyone is different, everyone has different tastes. The last full-length book that I read this month is Forever Interrupted by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and this book made me cry. It's about a woman named Elsie who has met the love of her life, Ben, and they fell in love really quickly after they met. They started dating, and they were married shortly after that. And Ben ends up dying 9 days after they get married. And this isn't a spoiler, this happens at the very beginning of the book. And basically the story goes back and forth between Elsie meeting Ben, falling in love with Ben, to dealing with the loss of her husband. And it goes back and forth the whole book, and you're learning to love her relationship as well as loving her character and how she's grieving and just wanting to be there for her. And this book actually was my favorite book by Taylor Jenkins Reid that I've read in a while, other than Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. That book, one of my favorite books. I love that book so much, and because of that, I have been reading her other ones. Obviously, it's a theme for me. I love to read all of the books by authors that I really enjoy. It's just kind of how I do things, and this one did not disappoint me. I was a big fan of both storylines. I ended up giving this book a 3.5 stars out of 5. I really enjoyed it. This is a really good book if you're looking for something that has a little bit more of an emotional side to it, as well as a bit of drama and some romance thrown in there as well, and this was a good one. The last book that I read this month is a short story, also by Taylor Jenkins Reid, called Evidence of the Affair. And this book is told in the format of letters between two people who have found out that their partners are having an affair with each other. So two people are sending letters back and forth, dealing with this revelation of, oh my gosh, my husband, my wife, they are having an affair. And it's kind of the story of that. And although this is a really short story, I read this on ebook as well, so I don't have a physical copy of it, but it went by like this. I don't usually read short stories, but I came across this one just because I was looking at the other books by Taylor Jenkins Reid that I haven't read yet, and I found this one, and I'm definitely so happy I gave this one a chance. It made me cry. I felt attached to the characters, even though I was only reading about them for such a short amount of time, and I have no regrets reading it. I would recommend it to anyone who you want a quick read, something that you can finish pretty quickly, but it still has a good story and will leave you with a good impact. So that wraps up my July reading wrap up, and I want to thank you guys for watching this video, of course, and if you want to watch more of my videos, you can feel free to subscribe, leave a like or comment, and I will see you guys next time. Bye. God bless.